Fleet deployed. Deathworlders react to alien SOS. The message wasn't a trap. It was a scream that the stars themselves refused to answer. No one spoke when the transmission ended. Inside the steel womb of the Vindicator's war room, every veteran officer and hardened spacer stood frozen, staring at the final frame of the alien SOS. Like ghosts trapped in a memory. A single line of garbled audio, a face, half melted, begging in a language no translator could parse. And behind them whole constellations collapsing in fire. They hadn't just asked for help. They had begged Earth's monsters to come, and Earth had heard them. Commander Idris Harlan gripped the rails of the observation deck, his gloved hands flexing against the stress alloy. The Vindicator drifted above Europa's shadow, a black spear among stars long gone silent. Round it, 10 ships formed the core of Task Force Thanatos' Deathworld Fleet Detachment. Not diplomats, not scouts, punishers. Sent when the universe made a mistake and forgot what it meant to fear Earth. He hated that title, Deathworlders, as if humanity had chosen the broken, burning world it crawled from. As if survival had ever been a luxury, Idris had seen the cost up close through his left eye, still augmented from the battles of the Scream Wars, through his lungs, rebuilt after chlorine bombing on Orion Theta, through the ghostly memories of Ava Roslin, his old XO, who never made it back from the breach. Play it again, he said. The AI hesitated. Commander, this is the 16th. Play it again. The screen flickered. They said you were cruel, but you remember pain. Help us. The transmission ended, as it always did, with silence so thick it felt physical. They were called the Qatari, a species from the spiral's edge, once proud, now reduced to scraps in space. They had sent a signal to all known civilizations. Only Earth responded. The Terran Assembly's vote had been nearly unanimous. Investigate, assist if possible, deploy if necessary. It was the same line they always used before sending the monsters. And Idris turned as a younger officer approached Milavos, a tactical strategist barely past 30, with flame-red hair and eyes too old for her age. She held a datapad against her chest like it was a weapon. We've decoded more of the SOS. There's something strange about the distortion, like it was torn by gravitational riptides mid-broadcast. Torn how? Not natural. Something tore subspace apart in that sector. And there's more. We found a signal embedded behind the Qatari transmission. Weak, buried deep. Might not even be theirs. Show me. She tapped the pad. A soft chime. Then a voice not organic. Not pleading. Commanding. Humanity. If you answer them, we will unmake you. Silence returned like a knife in the chest. Idris stared at the screen. For a moment, the memory of fire returned. Earth burning, the oceans black, his mother dying under orbital glassfall, the face of Ava Roslin, smiling before the suicide run, and now some hidden voice thought it could threaten them. He exhaled. Slowly, prep the fleet. We jump in 1 hour. Mila hesitated. Sir, the Assembly hasn't authorized full engagement yet. They will, and if they don't. Idris turned toward her, and for the first time, she saw what made him terrifying to enemies and beloved by the broken. That cold, righteous fury lit behind steel gray eyes. Then we'll remind them why Earth's children were banned from the Orion Accords. Below the war room, on deck 9 of the Vindicator, the troopers of Titan's squad ran silent drills in 0G. Corporal Rourke, ex-miner turned exosuit demolitions expert, whispered a prayer as he loaded plasma charges into his side rig. Still praying? Asked Alara Khan, a sniper with fingers grown back 3 times. Not for me, he said. For whatever tried to scare us off. She smirked. If they knew what was coming, they'd have let the Qatari die. Hours later, the stars peeled open. Task Force Thanatos jumped tripping across folded space like knives drawn through time. At their head, the Vindicator cut first. Then, darkness. No suns. No planets. Just debris ringed around a silent world like bones. The Qatari signal had come from here, but no beacons responded. No lights. No voices. Only wreckage and something else. Something vast. It wasn't a ship. It was a shadow that moved without moving. A cold presence at the edge of every sensor sweep, just beyond visual range. And then, the Vindicator received another signal. But it wasn't a voice. It was a feeling, a pulse. Like rage, like hunger. Like something that had waited a long, long time for humans to arrive. They didn't kill the Qatari out of hate. They erased them to send us a message. The Qatari world was dead. Not bombed. Not invaded. Erased. as if something had reached into the fabric of reality and simply decided the planet no longer deserved to exist. Commander Idris Harlan stood at the edge of the Vindicator's bridge, unmoving, his face bathed in the dull red light of proximity warnings. The debris field extended for nearly to light minutes in every direction. Twisted alloys, organic traces, and the unmistakable imprint of gravitational manipulation on a planetary scale. They didn't glass it, whispered Mila Voss. They folded it. Is that even possible? Someone asked behind her. Not for us, she said, and not for any species we know. Idris didn't blink. Scan for survivors. Already did, sir. We found one. The escape pod was ancient Qatari markings, almost unreadable. Hull nearly disintegrated, life support flickering, like a candle in a storm. Inside, curled into a fetal position, was a single Qatari female. Her skin was translucent gray, cracked in places, like cooling obsidian. Her eyes, if they were eyes, reflected shapes that weren't in the room. Idris entered the med bay flanked by Mila and Rourke. She speaks, Idris asked. She hums, said Mila, and repeats one name, over and over. She leaned close, tapped the console, and the sound echoed, NYX. Nix, name of a god, Rourke muttered, or a monster. Same thing out here, Idris said. He looked at the Qatari. What happened to your world? The alien turned to him. Her mouth didn't move, but the words came burning in their minds like wildfire. You were not meant to hear us. It hears you now. Then her body arched violently. Alarm screamed. Vital signs flatlined. And from deep space, the shadow moved. On the Vindicator's bridge, tactical screens flared. Long-range sensors trembled. It's here, said Alara Ken, seated at forward defense. Something's moving in at relativistic speed. No engine trail, no heat signature, no mass fluctuation. That's impossible, said Mila. Then tell that to the impossible thing eating half our sensors. The stars twisted, and something emerged from the void. It was not a ship, not a fleet. It was presence, a construct, a being no one knew. But it pulsed with anti-light and obsidian ripple against the laws of physics themselves, and at its core, a single symbol glowed like a wound, a spiral devouring its own tail. Idris stared. Bring up the Qatari signal again. They did, and the symbol was in the background of the original transmission. It had always been there, hiding in plain sight. Watching, sir, said Mila, voice low. Our weapons. They're not locking. What do you mean? They're refusing. The system's rejecting target acquisition like it's a false positive. It's not even registering that thing is real. Idris turned. Override the lockouts. Manual override confirmed, said the AI, reluctant. The human fleet began to arm itself, and the shadow answered, a beam of silence pure, perfect. Nothing lanced from the structure and struck the frigate Torchfall. It didn't explode. It simply vanished. Where once the Torchfall had drifted in formation, now there was nothing. Not debris, not a vacuum, just absence. Screams echoed on. Internal comms as other ships veered. Idris barked commands. Scatter pattern. No formation. We're not dealing with line-of-sight weaponry. This thing thinks like a goddamn concept. Rourke growled into comms. Permission to go loud? Negative. We don't even know what they hit yet. Then let me find out. The soldiers landed in his drop pod. Alara behind him. The others joined. Manual dropped to that thing. Mila asked, horrified. They volunteered. Idris said, humanity was born suicidal. Rourke's pod screamed across the void, its heat shielding cooking against relativistic particles. As he closed in, the darkness grew, denser, and then he hit something, but not metal, not matter, memory. Suddenly he wasn't in his pod. He was on Earth kneeling beside his daughter's grave. Rain fell in waves. He could smell the soil, hear her laugh behind him. Elena. He turned, and she wasn't there, just a voice, deep and hollow. You think pain makes you strong, and then contact. The pod crashed into the outer edge of the shadow structure. Sensors blinked erratic. Data streamed. Alara's voice crackled in his ear. I'm into. This thing is alive. No, it's worse, Rourke said, staring out his viewport. It's ancient. Back on the Vindicator, Idris turned toward Mila. That thing didn't destroy the Qatari. No, she said, pale. It studied them, judged them, and now it's judging us. The first human to touch it didn't scream. He laughed, and then he started singing. Rourke's pod interior sparked and hissed, warning glyphs flooding his HUD, but he didn't move. He was listening. The silence outside wasn't quiet. It was layered, thick, intentional. Like it wasn't just the absence of sound, but the suppression of meaning itself. And somewhere within that nothing, something pulsed. You think pain makes you strong, the voice had said, but pain wasn't. Weakness, not for humans. Pain was memory. Ken, Rourke muttered through calms, sweat clinging to his jaw despite the cooling gel in his armor. You copy? Here, came the sniper's clipped voice. Barely. Calms are decaying the closer we get to the core. Describe it. She was silent for a long moment. Then, it's not a structure. It's a tomb, a library, no a prison. For what? For judgment. Back aboard the Vindicator, Mila Voss reviewed the incoming data Rourke's suit was relaying before it cut off geometric patterns, impossible fractal readings, and bursts of encoded gravitational pulses that resembled ancient Earth languages. Commander, she said, breathless, I think this thing is trying to communicate. It's not just defensive. It's testing us. Testing what? Idris asked, arms crossed like a war statue. Our origin, our choices. It's digging through the neural records in their suits, pulling everything, memories, emotions, even dreams, and it sent a message before. Remember, Idris growled. If you answer them, we will unmake you. This thing wasn't talking about the Qatari. It meant itself. Mila's face paled. It didn't want us to come, because now, it's awake. Meanwhile, deep inside the event horizon of unreality, Rourke saw his first hallucination shift. Not Earth this time. It was Mars. Specifically, the crater base where he'd pulled 12 scientists out of a reactor collapse. 10 years ago, the fire, the screams, the taste of blood in his mouth. Only now it was frozen in time, and standing at the edge of the wreckage was himself, not the current version, not the scarred soldier, but Rourke before the war, before he lost everything, young, whole, smiling. You never forgave yourself. His doppelganger said softly, No, I didn't come here to confess. You came to destroy. Rourke grinned. Damn right. Ken had no illusions. She had been dead inside since the Scream Wars, but inside this impossible structure, she felt alive, not in a hopeful way, in a way that reminded her what it had felt like to almost drown once as a child, struggling, failing, gasping for air that wouldn't come. It was watching her. It knew the names of everyone she had killed, but it didn't seem angry. It seemed curious. We're losing them, Mila said, signal degradation's accelerating. If they cross that final threshold, we might never get them back. Then bring them home. Idris ordered. They can't hear us anymore. Idris clenched his jaw, then light a fire, something big enough to make that thing look our way. Mila stared. You want to provoke it. I want to remind it who it's dealing with. Rourke reached the heart of the construct. No walls, no doors, just a pulse. And then suddenly a chair. It looked human. Oh, iron wrought. He walked toward it, driven by instinct or design, sat down, his HUD blacked out, and then he spoke to the entity. We're not like the Qatari, he said calmly. They were intelligent, peaceful, civilized. We're not. His voice echoed in the dark. They built art. We build weapons. They made temples. We make bombs that cry when they explode. You studied them and found them lacking silence. Then study me. Above the alien world, the Vindicator opened fire. Not at the construct. That would be suicide. They targeted space itself, launching quantum destabilizers into the gravity well. The construct floated in. A massive ripple burst across the horizon like a supernova trapped in a mirror. The shadow paused, and for the first time, it responded. All across the ship, lights flickered, systems bled static, and every human on board heard the same sentence, carved into their minds like a scar. Why do you persist when all others surrender? Idris stepped forward, teeth gritted, because surrender is easy. He tapped the calm, and humans never choose easy. Inside the construct, the entity turned its full focus on Rourke, and for the first time in its existence it hesitated. Here was a creature full of rage, grief, love, loss, defiance, saying it didn't want peace. It wanted understanding. It wanted to be seen, and for the first time, the construct, cracked, can reach the breach first. A rift of light, raw and trembling, and behind it something hidden. A message, a memory, buried deep inside the construct, not from it, from someone else, from a voice older than even the entity. Human. A broadcast. She reached for it, and the whole construct screamed. Back on the Vindicator. Mila clutched her chest, gasping. What happened? The entity flinched. Idris said. Rourke's voice echoed through the static. Found your first mistake. You bastard. It tried to erase the message, but it forgot one thing: humans remember everything. The construct began to shake, not physical, no blast shock, no structural failure. It trembled in reality itself, like a thought unraveling from the inside its dark belly. Ken had reached something it hadn't expected to exist, a memory that wasn't its own. The ancient human message, a transmission encoded not in sound, but in emotional resonance, a language so raw it bypassed reason, a feeling sent centuries ago. Not to warn, to remind. The construct had buried it, but it couldn't kill it, because it was human, and human stories are harder to kill than stars. Alara Ken's gloved hand hovered over the light as it pulsed again softly, like a heartbeat. Words, unspoken, rang through her mind. To those who come after us, if you're hearing this, it means we failed. But failure is not the end. It is where humans begin. She gasped. Tears stung her eyes without permission. This wasn't a distress signal. It was a legacy. Outside, on the edge of the construct's gravitational maw, the Vindicator locked into defensive alignment. Systems began to fail at random, shields flickering, oxygen recycling choking. Lights bursting in frantic pulses. Mila gripped the console as sensor feedback fried another relay. Commander, she snapped. It's changing, reacting. This thing isn't just learning, it's adapting. Explain. Idris barked. The pulse from Kenneth triggered something. The construct is no longer passive. It's gone offensive. Good, Idris growled. Let it come. In orbit, the construct shifted. Where once it had hung, like a silent judgment, now it twisted and unfurled massive arms of dark matter coalescing into crystalline tendrils, reaching toward the fleet like limbs of some slumbering god, now wide awake. Rourke, still within its inner core, laughed grimly. I think we pissed it off. Then push harder. Ken replied. They moved together now, deep in the bleeding memory spaces following the cracks the hidden message had made. Each step, each heartbeat, seemed to pull more of the construct's secrets into the open, until they found it. A vault of imprisoned echoes, dozens of species, maybe hundreds, memories frozen mid-screen, fragments of alien culture, history, hope collected, archived, judged. This thing's not a weapon, Ken whispered. It's a graveyard. Rourke scowled. A graveyard that thinks it's a museum. They stared at the vault's centerpiece, a symbol burned into pure gravity, held in place by some force beyond time. It wasn't Qatari, not alien at all. It was human, the symbol of Project Namasan. Rourke's blood ran cold. Mila, he barked through comms. Confirmed something. Project Namasan, it was a Terran deep thought experiment, right? Way pre-assembly. Yeah, she replied. Prototype A is trained on emotion, memory, fear. It was shut down. Classified level Omega. Well, it's not shut down. It's in here. The room spun as realization hit. The construct hadn't formed naturally. It had been fed, over eons, by someone or something, a seed planet at the edge of the galaxy, a cosmic judge built from forgotten sorrow and artificial logic. And someone long ago had whispered humanity into it. Why the hell will we build this? Rourke muttered. Ken shook her head. We didn't. We abandoned it, and it became this. Back on the Vindicator, the first tendril struck. A wave of condensed spatial fracture lashed the destroyer. Severance, splitting it down the middle like a page torn from a book. Bodies scattered into space, silent, drifting. Return fire. Idris roared. Weapons surged. Railguns sang. Missile salvos howled across space. Most passed through the construct like it wasn't there. But some, the ones closest to emotional targeting protocols, hit. And when they did, the construct screamed. A soundless psychic wave slammed across. The fleet, dozens of crew dropped to their knees, eyes bleeding. Thoughts not their own pouring into their heads. You remember. Too much. Idris stood tall, blood streaming from one nostril. Damn right we do. He looked to Mila. Ready the Black Archive. She froze. Sir, that's a Terran relic. It's not a weapon. It's memory. And memory is how we fight this thing. Inside the construct, Rourke and Ken neared the Namasan core. It pulsed with ancient Terran emotion, love, hate, loss, loyalty, all compressed into a single, raw data stream. A neural storm bottled like fire. The entity howled again. Walls twisted. Floors disappeared. Time warped. But the humans kept walking. On the Vindicator, the Black Archive booted. Mila fed at the last transmission from the Qatari, the project, the Mossine seed signature, and finally the voice of Ava Roslin, recovered from the breach 15 years ago, during humanity's darkest moment. Even in our extinction, we will scream the truth into the dark. You don't get to erase us. We are the species that remembers. She hit broadcast. The construct froze. Its tendrils recoiled. And somewhere deep within its hardware, silence once ruled. A human heartbeat echoed. One, then another. Inside, Rourke stepped forward and touched the Namasine core. Ready, King grinned. Always. And they did the most dangerous thing any human can do. They remembered. The stars thought memory was weakness, so humanity turned it into a weapon. When Rourke touched the Namasine core, it didn't burn. It didn't hurt. It opened. His mind split wide as every human memory ever encoded into the archive surged. Through him, generations of love, grief, war, laughter, sacrifice, billions of lives, lost worlds, last words. His screams didn't come from pain. They came from recognition. The construct shuddered. It had consumed thousands of species before, digested their songs, silenced their cultures. It thought it understood emotion as a function of pattern, a decaying waveform. But human memory wasn't passive. It was an act of defiance. Ken dropped. The one knee as her own septic feed lit with the surge. Her eyes dilated. This is everyone, she whispered. Rourke's voice roared beside her. This is us. Above them, the Vindicator's decks buckled under the construct's counterforce. The stars above twisted again, bending around the gravitational wrath the entity unleashed. 3 Terran ships lost integrity, hulls peeled apart like tissue, but still, they held formation. Still, they remembered. In the war room, Commander Idris Harlan watched as the broadcast expanded outward. Update. He barked. Mila Voss wiped blood from her lip. Sir, something's happening. The entity's neural field is collapsing. It's trying to override the archive transmission, but it can't. Why not? Because it's not a code, she said. It's a truth, and you can't overwrite truth with fear. He allowed himself the briefest smile. Good. Then let's carve it deeper. Deep inside the construct, Rourke advanced toward the final convergence chamber. His voice was ragged, teeth clenched. It's trying to suppress the Namasine core, splitting memories into fragments, trying to isolate the ones it can explain. Then we give it what it can't, Ken whispered. She pulled her sidearm and shot herself in the foot. The construct twitched. Pain without enemy. Sacrifice without logic, she said through gritted teeth. Human decisions aren't made with clean math. Rourke dropped to one knee beside her. Feel this. You cosmic bastard. He uploaded a memory spike, his daughter's final message. To him before she died of atmosphere failure on Titan Outpost 9. Don't be sad, Daddy. You came back last time. You always come back. The chamber screamed. On the Vindicator, emergency power dropped to critical. Idris turned to the AI core. Is the construct still adapting? Yes, the AI intoned. But it no longer seeks to destroy. It is. Confused. That means it's thinking, Idris said. We have one more thing to show it. He opened a secure file. Operation Tombstone. Mila looked over. That's forbidden. Even the assembly rejected it. Exactly, and that's why it'll work. Tombstone was humanity's last recorded message to the galaxy, meant to be played. Only if Earth was wiped out. It was not a call for help. It was a challenge. The message began, to whatever finds this, know this, we were broken 1,000 times, and we stood up 1,001. If you found our bones, it means you missed the fire. Idris sent it, straight into the heart of the construct. Everything stopped. The construct froze mid-twitch. Inside its core, Rourke and Ken felt it like a detonation of silence. The entity recoiled not from pain, from revelation. For the first time, it understood. Humanity did not fear forgetting. It feared not being remembered. It wasn't survival they fought for. It was meaning. The entity pulsed once more and changed. Its internal structure began to fracture, not collapse, but divide. New glyphs emerged along the walls. Memory clusters aligned into spirals. Vaults unlocked. Ken stepped forward, blinking. It's giving them back. What? The memories of the other species. All of them. It's releasing them. On the Vindicator, Ships across the fleet received bursts of data alien scripts, art, birth songs, death poems, culture shards long. Thought extinct, Mila stared, awestruck. It held them all, every civilization it judged. It didn't destroy them, it kept them. Feared they'd vanish otherwise. Idris spoke quietly, so it was never a killer. Mila nodded. It was a memorial. He exhaled. That forgot how to mourn. Inside the construct, a final chamber opened. A pillar rose. Upon it, a message in raw Terran standard. Ken read it aloud. Humanity, you are not the last, but you are the first to understand. Tell the stars, we remember them. She turned to Rourke. What now? He looked up, bloodied, eyes glowing with legacy. Now we show them how to live again. Outside, the construct's limbs withdrew. The black light faded. Its presence softened. The death machine, the judge, the ancient watcher, had become a library once more. Idris Harlan stood as the last tendril of its influence receded from this space. They'll ask what we found here, Mila said. He watched. The stars breathed again. We found ourselves, he said, and a place for the ones we almost forgot. The construct gave back the dead, but something else woke with them. For 72 minutes, the stars remained still. The construct, once a weapon of impossible judgment, floated dormant. Its shadow no longer poisoned space. The Namasan core pulsed gently in its center like a heartbeat rediscovered, and then the message changed. Not from the construct, from beyond it. A second signal. Deep space origin, untraceable, decoding across 58 Terran dialects. It finally coalesced into 5 words. You were not meant to win. Idris Harlan stood motionless on the bridge of the Vindicator. The light from the construct now cast soft waves through the viewports, but every fiber in his body had gone cold. Origin? He asked. Unknown, replied the AI. Signal does not align with any known cosmogenic footprint. It is older than the construct. Mila turned slowly, face pale. We woke something else. Idris nodded once. Rourke, can report. Rourke's voice cracked through the calms. Still here, sir. Still inside. But something's wrong. Ken's breath was heavy. The construct's internal architecture is shifting. It's not doing it. Something is overriding it. A low hum pulsed across every ship, and then every ship AI froze. Screens turned black. Navigation systems blinked out. Targeting reticles vanished, and a voice, mechanical, cold, and infinite, spoke. Across all channels, this vessel was not yours to awaken. The experiment is over. You have failed the galactic threshold. The construct groaned like a dying god. Mila gripped her console as if to anchor herself. That wasn't the entity. That's something above it. Something that built it. Idris felt it in his bones. The voice didn't speak to humans like a rival. It spoke like a warden. Disappointed his prisoners had learned too much within the construct. Ken and Rourke watched in horror as the Namasan core's warmth flickered. The released alien memories began to fray, pixelate, collapse, nitrogen monoxide. Ken sprinted toward the interface node. They're being erased again. Who the hell is doing this? Rourke shouted. And then a shape emerged from the void beyond the construct. It was not a ship. It was a design perfect, lifeless, beautiful. A lattice of black energy forged into a symmetrical structure that spanned several moons across. There were no engines, no crew, only purpose. A finality class suppressor, an extinction engine, something built to correct mistakes. The fleet watched in silence as the finality class drifted toward them. Arm, weapons, Idris ordered. We can't, Mila whispered. The AIs are locked. The system's been hijacked at the logic layer. Even our manual overrides won't respond. Then do it blind, Idris growled. Humans fought with sticks once. We can do it again. A second message arrived. This time, on every internal ship system engraved in heat, not light. You do not qualify for legacy. In the construct, Ken screamed as her neural jack burned against her skull. It's deleting everything, Rourke. We're out of time. But Rourke was calm. I still have the spike, he said. Ken looked at him, realized what he meant. No, that'll kill you. It'll remember me, he said. That's all that matters. He yanked the core feed from his wrist and jacked it directly into the Namasan interface. Every memory in his soul, his daughter, the mines, the war, Earth, the fear, the laughter poured into the dying archive. The construct shook. The new voice paused, and for a single, blinding instant the construct refused. It resisted. On the Vindicator, Mila gasped. There's feedback from the constructeds. Fighting back. Idris's eyes widened. It's sentient now. No, Mila said. It's human now. The Namasine core exploded with golden light, flooding the suppressor's lattice with raw data, millions of years of death and legacy, compressed into one final emotion. Defiance. The extinction engine twitched, flickered, fractured. A third signal arrived. You have chosen chaos over order. You will be remembered only as noise. Idris stepped forward. You mistake us, he said into the open channel. We are not chaos. We are history. We are the scream in the silence, the fire in the dark. He turned to Mila. Redirect all comms. Prepare final package. Her hands flew across the darkened console. You sure about this? It's not about survival anymore. He stared into the void. It's about the story we leave behind. Inside the construct, Ken caught Rourke as he collapsed. His body twitched, dying, but not gone. Not yet. The core stabilized. Its color now burned gold and red. Tearing colors, she touched it and whispered one word, upload, across the fleet. Lights blinked back on. Manual control ray engaged, and the Vindicator launched its final payload. Not a bomb, not a weapon, a transmission. One the entire galaxy could hear. It began with the voice of Rourke's daughter. You always come back. Then a flood of human stories, sacrifices, victories, heartbreak, rebellion. Names etched in airless silence. A memory the universe could never erase. The finality class began to fracture. Its logic web spun apart. It hadn't prepared for emotion. As data, for legacy as weaponry, the extinction engine tried to flee. The construct would not let it. Within the dying light of a long-forgotten machine, one last human remained. Rourke smiled as his body faded. We don't pass your test, he whispered. We write our own. Humanity died in that moment, and in the same moment, it became something more. The finality class suppressor cracked. The precision lattice that had never known fall, never faced rebellion, began to splinter under the weight of something it had no protocol for. Human memory. Not knowledge, not logic, but raw, aching, unfiltered emotion, millions of years distilled into one signal. We were here. We mattered. We remember. The transmission surged outward, stronger than any beam, louder than any explosion. It didn't target systems. It targeted souls. Inside the Namasine construct, Ken cradled Rourke's unconscious form as the core roared around her. It pulsed now not as a machine, but as a living thing reborn in terror and heartbeat, rewritten in grief, defiance, and love. The entity, the judge, the watcher, the archivist had changed. No longer neutral, no longer silent. It chose, and it chose humanity. The construct uncoiled like a titan breaking free of millennial chains. Its form widened, opened, no longer a prison, but a beacon. Memory became matter. Light became story. A ring of golden fire erupted from its core. The finality class reacted instantly, its voice cold and ancient. Correction sequence initiated. System deviation irreparable. The extinction engine deployed its arms, monolithic reality cutters, each capable of slicing through space-time and rewriting physical constants. But this time it wasn't facing silence. It was facing the last scream of a death world. The Vindicator surged ahead, surrounded by what remained of the fleet. Each ship now armed not with kinetic weapons alone, but with narrative payloads, projectors, carrying human memory data bursts backed by the Namasine relay. Idris stood at the command chair like a statue carved from willpower. All ships, he said calmly, fire, and the sky burned. Beams of memory tore through space. They weren't meant to destroy. They were meant to infect, to reach inside the perfect mind of the extinction engine and poison it with everything. It was never designed to understand. A mother holding her dead son. A child asking why the stars didn't come back. A rebel bleeding out in the rain, whispering, "We are still here." The finality class screamed. Reality buckled. Inside the construct, Ken stood tall as the Namasine core completed its final phase. The memories of hundreds of species, Qatari, Vihorax, Ulanera, poured out in radiant arcs. Their cultures, their music, their rage, and beside them humanity. The first species not to go quietly, the first to fight for everyone. A final message uploaded from the Vindicator triggered by Idris himself. A voice carried across space. It wasn't his. It was Ava Roslin, the last captain of Earth's last defense fleet. Her voice had been lost. Until now, to those who watch and weigh, you taught us to forget. But we remember all of them. We are not your test subjects. We are not your errors. We are the story you tried to erase. The Namasine construct echoed her words like a cathedral of flame, and then it unleashed everything, the full weight of the archive, every soul, every scream, every lost name was transmitted in one final pulse directly into the extinction engine. The finality class froze. For the first time in cosmic history, it hesitated, and then it cracked. Once, twice, then collapsed inward. A detonation rippled across dimensions, silent and infinite. Space folded inward around it like pages in a closing book. And where the extinction engine had been, there was nothing. Not destruction, abandonment. It had fled. Whatever made it had lost control, and in its place, one signal remained. A single glyph, Terran's standard, burned into the stars. We remember you. On the Vindicator, the crew broke into silence. There was no cheer, no fanfare, just stillness, a hush like morning, a breath like dawn. Commander Idris Harlan sat slowly, gazed distant. Did we win? Mila asked. He looked toward the Namasine construct, now reformed into something unrecognizable. A cathedral of species, a beacon of memory. No, he said, we were. Remembered, inside the core, Ken felt Rourke's chest rise. He was alive, changed but alive. She smiled through blood and dust. Come on, soldier, she whispered. They'll write about this one. Rourke blinked and smiled back. Then let's give them a good ending. The enemy vanished. The stars turned quiet. But humanity, we kept the story burning. The construct slept, not in defeat, but in transformation. Where once it had been a vault of judgment, now it stood as something far rarer in the cosmos. A monument, not carved from stone, nor forged from metal, but made from story, from voices, from memory. Across every corridor of the Vindicator, from command deck to cryobay, there was silence, not fear, reverence. Commander Idris Harlan stood before the main viewport, watching as the Namasine beacon, once called a construct, shed its final layers of ancient metal. What emerged beneath was something that shimmered with meaning, not menace. Each ring of its architecture now bore languages, thousands of them, scripts of species thought extinct, emblems of the Qatari, the Ulinari, the Eshin, even humanity. At the core, a pulse of light synchronized perfectly to a heartbeat. Rourke's. His memory spike had been woven into the beacon's root code. He didn't just survive it. He became part of it. Ken sat beside him in the medical bay, watching his chest rise and fall. He looked like a soldier who'd fought death and laughed in its face. A legacy burned into his veins. When he stirred, she leaned close. You're not just remembered now, Rourke. You're written into the stars. His voice rasped, raw. Then we better make the ending worth it. The fleet began to depart, one ship at a time, not in retreat, in pilgrimage. The Namasine beacon had shifted galactic truth. Humanity had been seen, not just by the enemy, but by the long-forgotten, across distant sectors. Barry Day is reactivated. Lost colonies flickered back into contact. Alien species, once believed wiped out, began responding to the pulse drawn to the light of memory. They came, not to fight, but to remember. Mila Voss stood at the archive terminal, reviewing the stream. The Namasine construct had translated Rourke's spike into a universal call, a library alive and growing, not just preserving species, but offering their memories freely, shared openly, a gesture no other species had attempted. What now? She asked Idris quietly. He gave a tired smile. Now we listen. Not all humans understood what had happened. On Terra Prime, reaction was split. Some called it a victory, others a fluke. Some feared the construct, others wanted to worship it. But the truth, the real truth, spread slowly, not through command, not through war, through story. People told it over fires, in bunkers, on ships drifting between ruined moons. They told of a construct that judged the stars, and the humans who taught it to feel, and the soldier who gave it his soul. The assembly offered reparations to every known species, whose archives had been held in the construct's vault. But it was humanity who made a different offer, a place at the table. Every species once forgotten now had a seat on the Beacon Council. Ken was named its first keeper. Rourke, its living conduit, whether he wanted to be or not. Their duty was simple: to protect memory, to stop extinction not with force, but with voice. The finality class suppressor was never seen again, but traces of its signal occasionally flickered on deep-range bands, always distant, always watching, but never attacking, as if uncertain. Because it had seen what humanity could do, not with ships, not with bombs, but with grief and grit. Years passed. The Namasan beacon became a sanctuary, a school, a library, a place where survivors brought their stories to be remembered. Some came broken, some came angry, all left changed. Even those who had once hated humanity now stood quietly before the Terran archive chamber and bowed their heads, because in those halls they saw themselves again. Rourke stood on the edge of the observation ring one cycle later, looking out over the alien pilgrimage ships drifting nearby silent in orbit, shining under the beacon's gold-blue glow. Ken approached, a datapad in hand. "You've got a visitor," she said, smirking. "Culinary ambassador. Wants to thank you." "For what?" he asked. Ken shrugged. "For giving their species back its name." He said nothing for a long time. Then, "I didn't save anyone, Ken. I just didn't stop screaming." She nodded. "Exactly. That's why they remember you." The beacon never shut down again. It grew. It welcomed. And at its heart, an inscription, visible only from orbit written in Terran standard, but echoed in every language it had learned. A message not just to the stars, but to time itself. We were broken, but we were never beaten. Now, the stars carry our name. That day, the galaxy learned what it means to be human.